Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Allegory, Ancient Symbolism in Sacred Scripture, a great Bible study series where we unpack the symbolic correspondence found in the allegorical language of sacred scriptures. In this episode, we will discuss the allegorical meaning of heat and its opposite, cold. If you'd like to better understand the word found in the Bible and other ancient sacred scriptures, then subscribe to this channel and continue watching. In Revelation chapter 3 we read, "I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold or hot, I will spit you out of my mouth." Heat is a key topic that comes up in various ways frequently in Scripture, and it is the subject that we will unpack in this episode today. It bears relation to warmth, fire, summer, sun, and underpins such topics, which we will revisit another time. I also want to reiterate that at times I may use examples from other sacred texts to illustrate the universality of the ancient word and its allegorical nature, but in this episode I will focus only on the word in the Bible. Now let us first have a look at the use of heat in common language used today. And because of my interest in politics too, I will start with a quote from Ronald Reagan, who is quoted of having said, "When you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat." This of course refers to human nature in politics or any area where you're trying to convince someone that if people cannot understand what it is that you want them to see, you stimulate their emotions and drawing on someone's heartstrings. And that might bypass their logic and rationale, but it certainly gets people excited and energized. It is also common to hear people use or refer to someone as cold-hearted if they are apathetic or show a general lack of mercy or empathy or affection. The term cold-blooded is also used for the same when there is a clear lack of mercy or empathy. We say someone has a hot temper when that person gets angry easily. And we use the saying to blow hot and cold to mean as being unable to decide for something and perhaps alternating for or against a particular decision as a result of a lack of care or emotional investment. So it is becoming clear that the terms hot and cold are used synonymously in common language with having an affection or a lack of it, or to feel warmth towards something, to love something or not. Now let us have a look at a couple of passages in the Word, where of course allegory and parabolic meaning holds true everywhere. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, we read, "Otherwise the avenger of blood might pursue the manslayer in the heat of his anger and overtake him, because the way is long, and take his life, though he was not deserving of death, since he had not hated him previously." In Psalm 39 we find, "My heart was hot within me, while I was musing, the fire burned." It is worth repeating that our outer or worldly experience and environment form the foundation of our thoughts, language, and therefore our scriptures. However, divine revelation captured in these inspired sacred scriptures is ultimately derived from the infinite Creator, and therefore universal principles of creation itself, and therefore the allegories represent these principles. I think it is pretty clear with what we've discussed so far that heat symbolizes love and affection. Being on the positive side, affection for what is good, and obviously on the negative side it can also represent a love for self, which is anger, and ultimately a hate for what is good and charitable. Used symbolically, therefore, heat represents the love in us that drives our will and fuels or energizes or heats our emotions and motivations. Now let us have a look at what Emanuel Swedenborg says on this subject. Swedenborg uses the term correspondence for this allegorical nature because any visual object or element in the natural world directly correlates to or corresponds to a spiritual antecedent, being a spiritual quality or process. He says the following about heat and cold. Referring to Genesis 8 verse 22, he writes, "Cold and heat signifies the state of man when he is being regenerated, which is like this in respect to the reception of faith and charity. Cold signifies no faith and charity, heat, faith and charity." Further on in the same work he writes, referring to Revelation chapter 3 verses 15 and 16, that cold signifies no love or no charity and faith, and that heat or fire signifies love or charity and faith is evident from the following passages in John, where it is said, "I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot, so that because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth," where cold denotes no charity and hot much charity. And now bringing in our previous topic, light also. We read in Swedenborg's work, True Christian Religion, "Good is in the heat of heaven, and truth is in its light, while evil is in the cold of hell, and falsity in its darkness." Now please allow me to indulge and provide a slightly longer but beautiful and relevant quote from Arcana Celestia, where Swedenborg writes, "The truths of faith are first rooted when man begins to acknowledge and believe, and they are not rooted before. What man hears from the word and holds in memory is only the sowing. The rooting does by no means begin until the man accepts and receives the good of charity. All the truth of faith is rooted by the good of faith, that is, by the good of charity. This is as with seed that is cast into the ground while it is still winter, and the ground is cold, and indeed it lies, but it does not take root. But as soon as the heat of the sun warms the earth in the time of the early spring, the seed begins first to push its root within itself, and then afterwards to send it forth into the ground. The case is the same with spiritual seed that is being implanted. This is never rooted until the good of charity, as it were, warms it, and then for the first time pushes its root within itself, and afterwards sends it forth. This pictures that knowledge, truth, or faith without love is cold and infertile, and it produces nothing. Now let us have a practical attempt at using allegory for our reading and study with a couple of passages from Scripture to highlight our topic for today, cold and hot. We have heard so far that we can either use the term love, affection, or charity, which is an affection for love or for what is good, remembering that love can also be used in a negative sense, the love of self. You may note that Swedenborg uses the term charity differently to what you and I perhaps are used to, and I will elaborate on this in a new perspectives video on charity in the near future. For simplicity's sake, we will accept love of good as being the principal meaning behind the symbol hot in this exercise. So in Ezekiel chapter 24, we read, "Then set the pot empty on the coals, that it may become hot, and its bronze may burn, that its filthiness may be melted in it, that its scum may be consumed." Now replace hot with love of good. We read, "Then set the pot empty on the coals, that it may become love of good, and its bronze may burn, that its filthiness may be melted in it, that its scum may be consumed." This then provides a picture, or emerges a picture of corrupting negative elements being removed, and thus something being purified by a love of good. Let's have a look at the second exercise in Revelation chapter 3. "I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth." Now if we now replace hot with much love of good and cold with no love of good, then you read, "I know your deeds, that you are neither no love of good nor much love of good. I wish that you were no love of good or much love of good. So because you are lukewarm and neither much love of good or no love of good, I will spit you out of my mouth. Then emerges a picture of someone being ambivalent, uncommitted, having a lack of care, which is symbolic for the fact that one cannot learn or grow, nor even be happy, in a state of ambivalence and where there is no distinction between what is good and what is not. And this therefore distorts what good is, corrupts it, and thus fails to protect what is good, which is incompatible with what aims to be good and true. Now, why don't you test this out for yourself too? And I'll leave you with a couple of quotes from Scripture below. The first one from Isaiah chapter 49 verse 10, and the next one from Daniel chapter 3 verse 22. And there are some other references here which I haven't provided a text for that you might like to read in light of the understanding of the allegory of hot and cold that we've learnt today. So, what do you think? Leave us a comment below. Thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video then please subscribe so that you can follow the series, and while you're at it, have a look at the other videos on this channel too and let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. If you haven't watched the introduction to this series, then please I'll invite you to do that and click on one of these links to see more, or perhaps stay for a few more minutes to hear about an interesting experience that Swedenborg had in the spiritual world. Swedenborg describes many encounters he had in the spirit world and conversations with angels, spirits and demons over the course of 30-some years. In True Christian Religion, he recounts one of those occasions, which I'd like to share with you here as it bears relevance to our topic today. In True Christian Religion, he writes, "An angel once said to me, 'If you wish to see clearly what faith is and what charity is, and thus what faith separate from charity is, and what it is when conjoined with charity, I will make it very clear to you.' I answered, 'Make it clear.' He said, 'Instead of faith and charity, think of light and heat, and you will see clearly. Faith in its essence is truth of wisdom, and charity in its essence is the affection of love. And in heaven the truth of wisdom is light, and affection of love is heat. The light and heat in which angels live are in essence nothing else. From this you can see clearly what faith is when separated from charity, and what faith is when conjoined to charity. Faith separated from charity is like light of winter, and faith conjoined with charity is like the light of spring. Wintry light, which is light separate from heat, because it is conjoined with cold, wholly strips trees of their leaves, kills the grass, hardens the earth, and freezes waters. But the light of spring, which is light joined with heat, causes trees to put forth leaves and then flowers and finally fruit, and so it opens and softens the earth that it may bring forth grasses, herbs, flowers, and it so melts the ice that the waters flow from their fountains. It is precisely the same with faith and charity. Faith, when separated from charity, makes all things dead, while faith joined with charity makes all things alive. This making alive and making dead can be seen to the life in our spiritual world, because here faith is light and charity is heat. Where faith is joined with charity, there are paradisal gardens, flower beds and grass plots with native charm according to that conjunction. But where faith is separated from charity, there is not even grass, and where there is any green, it is from briars and thorns." Well, I hope you really enjoyed this little story at the end. Let me know. Please leave a comment below. If you want more of these, I'll try and share some more of these with you over the course of the videos that I will release in future. Thank you.